Hello and welcome to the Doofcast, the official variety podcast of doofmedia.com. My name is Scott Daly and I am your host, an enormously wealthy purveyor of yellow journalism. And here's my dear, dear friend, Matt Freeman.
That's right. I'm your co-host, Matt Freeman, a silver-tongued screenwriter. And we'll be best friends forever, won't we, Scott?
Of course we will. That's Fox and the Hound, right? We'll be best friends forever, right? And then they fucking kill each other.
Yeah.
They didn't actually.
So sad. No, I'm pretty sure that happened.
I don't think they actually killed each other.
Okay.
I think they almost did, though.
You're probably right.
This week on the show, we are returning to one of our favorite directors with an addendum to our Deconstructing Fincher series. We're going to be talking about Fincher's newest film, which is from last year because we're a little slow on the uptake. We're going to be talking about 2020's Mank. Matt had not seen this movie, and he declared Fincher one of his 5 filmmakers that he would see on opening night. And so we gotta fix this, Matt. We gotta fix it.
I had to make myself not a complete liar anymore.
Yeah. Then we are going to circle back around to Fincher and do what we didn't do at the end of our original series, which is rank every single one of David Fincher's films. We're going to come up with the definitive Doof Media ranking of David Fincher. It's basically the most important thing we've ever done.
Yeah. It's going to be really dramatic because we're going to have to agree on the ranking.
Yeah, none of this. We each have our own ranking. We're gonna butt heads. We're gonna fight. Matt and I fight all the time, and this is gonna be the biggest fight ever.
This is gonna be swearing, throwing things, a dramatic room destroying scene.
Yeah, and if we don't fight, it's because my voice is just not held out, and you just roll over me because of my voice. Because those of you that can't hear at home, I'm struggling with the old moneymaker this week. My voice is not doing well. It's suffering. Hopefully it'll make it through this hour-long show. We'll see. I don't know. I like to think this is my sexy, sultry podcast voice.
Yes, Scott, definitely.
Yeah, definitely.
That's what I was thinking.
Especially when I raise it to a certain degree and I crack and it sounds like I'm 13 again. So that's everyone loves. I'm not gonna finish that sentence. That's weird. All right, so that's gonna be the show, Matt. I'm excited. So let's just get into it and let's talk about David Fincher's Mank.
Hello, everyone.
Make yourself to home, Mr. Mankowitz, or shall I call you Herman?
Please call me Mank. Mank.
This is Herman Mankiewicz, but we're to call him Mank.
Mankiewicz. Herman Mankiewicz, New York playwright and drama critic, turned humble screenwriter, Mr. Hearst. This is a business where the buyer gets nothing for his money but a memory. What he bought still belongs to the man who sold it. That's the real magic of the movies. Thunder, lightning, blood, fire, religion.
Help! Someone save me!
All in one film. That's director proof. That's why I always want Mank around.
Matt, what is Mank all about?
1930s Hollywood is reevaluated through the eyes of scathing social critic and alcoholic screenwriter Herman J. Mankiewicz as he races to finish the screenplay of Citizen Kane.
This movie was written by Jack Fincher, David Fincher's deceased father, directed by Fincher, of course, and stars Gary Oldman and Amanda Seyfried. There's a lot to talk about in this movie, Matt. I think that the place we'll start is maybe one of the most important places, which have you ever seen the movie Citizen Kane that this movie is about the writing of? No,
I haven't seen Citizen Kane. This is another hole in my history. You have, though.
I have, yeah. I think, we were talking about this last week and I kind of mentioned if you have time to watch Citizen Kane, maybe do it. And then I kind of rolled that back because I was actually like, no, I think it'd be an interesting experiment to watch this movie kind of about the making of Citizen Kane. And to be honest with you, that is visually and structurally like built to be very similar to Citizen Kane without any knowledge of that movie or what it is about or anything about it. Were you like even aware on any level what Citizen Kane is a movie about before watching Mank?
Yes, I knew. So I knew that it was about William Randolph Hearst. Mm-hmm. And I probably have more than your average human being's knowledge about William Randolph Hearst just because I used to live in Berkeley, California, and there's all these buildings that are that are named after him because he just spewed his money everywhere. And especially the university. And then like people would tell the story of Hearst and so I just picked up dribs and drabs about Hearst over time, and kind of understood that he was this extremely wealthy guy who had a lot of opinions and wasn't shy about throwing his weight around politically and monetarily. But I didn't know anything about his connection to Hollywood at all. Actually, I mean, I knew that he was someone who manipulated people through yellow journalism, but I didn't really realize that extended to film in any way, shape, or form. You could argue whether that's even an existent connection in the movie, but I'm getting ahead of myself.
Sure.
That's my, and then of course my background knowledge about the movie is just that it's basically the story of that guy's life, except fictionalized and exaggerated.
Yeah, definitely. Which is, I mean, something, even if you hadn't seen Citizen Kane, something that this movie makes very clear. I think getting into this conversation, we have to remember this is technically a deconstructing series, so I want to keep our eyes focused on David Fincher as we go through this movie. And I think the most important thing to start with is obviously the fact that this is a screenplay that was written by David Fincher's father. So this is a very personal project to him. He actually wanted to make this movie right after The Game back in the 90s, but it just didn't happen. I think he absolutely insisted that it would be filmed in black and white, and they just said, no, absolutely not. And so he kind of held on to this as one of his passion projects for a long, long time. And it wasn't until Netflix came along and was just throwing money at everything and everyone and didn't give any notes or didn't care what you did with it that he was finally able to make this movie. So Matt, what did you think of Mank?
Well, I really enjoyed watching it, which shouldn't be a shock because it's David Fincher and it's Gary Oldman. Gosh, like you put the two of them together, we talked, I think, at great length about how Fincher knows he's one of those directors. He's one of those directors who will construct a scene around a performance and make sure that it's, every line is underlined by the shot that is best for it, or by the, the blocking of the character in the room and all of these things. And Gary Oldman is, of course, just I don't know, maybe the best actor in the world. I don't know, close. So it worked on me really well. I mean, I think I don't even want to say criticisms, because it's not like I'm like, they should have done this different. It's more like questions or things where just the necessity of the story meant that the pacing flagged here and there. But I think this is the kind of movie where it's not meant to be a rip-roaring ride.
Sure.
So that's okay, actually.
Yeah, I mean, I think I agree with you there. I'm going to be honest with you. The first time I watched this movie, I didn't love it that much. I watched it when it came out last year, and I thought it was good. I mean, I am very much like a old Hollywood history nerd. I've read many books about old Hollywood. I've listened to many podcasts. If you want listeners out there to, like, the definitive podcast on old Hollywood is You Must Remember This by Karina Longworth. It's an incredible podcast that, like, she's been making for years, that goes into just anything you want to know about the history of Hollywood. It's in that podcast, and it's really great. I've been listening to that since it started. This is kind of my jam, but I don't know. I think I didn't connect with the movie. I think part of this was because I watched it on Netflix at home. And so, like, I was probably a little distracted. I think on the second viewing, I really fell in love with the movie in a way I hadn't the first time. I think part of it is just the dialogue in this movie moves very quickly, and the movie is actually very, very clever. And you really can only pick up on like half of the jokes that are being said, like half the time, unless you're like sitting there really paying attention to them. Like, the thing about Mank as a character is he's genuinely clever. And I don't mean, like, no offense, like Brandon Sanderson clever. I mean, like, he's genuinely like an extremely clever person who always has like the perfect quip for every moment. And it's just really, it's like a delight to listen to. And the thing that I love is actually, like, everyone around him also quips really well, including his wife, Sarah, who I think my favorite quip in the movie is like, at the very end of the movie, she's like, I'm going to go riding. I haven't seen a horse's face in a decade. She's calling him a horse's ass. And It's like, it's perfect. It's also, to me, feels very like 1940s old Hollywood, where like this is kind of just how dialogue was written back then, where everyone's just like bouncing off each other and saying very clever things, like not naturalistic dialogue at all, but like this elevated kind of theater-esque kind of dialogue. And I loved that, and I appreciated it so much more. And then, I mean, you see like structurally what this movie, the script and Fincher's movie, is doing with this whole story. And I just fell in love with it. I think it's fantastic. All the performances are amazing. Everyone gets their moment. Charles Dance as Hearst is perfect.
Yeah.
I really like, I recommend, when you have spare time, to go watch it again. It's not going to like change your mind completely about it, but I think you will fall in love with it, because I think that like once you kind of are very clear on what the movie's doing and get to really just soak into it a little bit more, I don't know, I ate it up.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the cleverness is almost the point. You have this character who, it's funny, I just now made this connection, but like he reminds me a ton of Tyrion Lannister, where I mean, he's a real person, but he's clearly been turned into a bit of a caricature in the movie. And it's like he is, you know, an alcoholic who always has the perfect quip for every situation, like you said.
Yeah.
But it's like he's sort of cursed by just being smarter than everybody around him all the time.
Yeah.
And has these self-destructive tendencies, and it's like he can't. Not only does he have the wittiest thing to say, but he can't not say it, even if it's like a cutting remark that's, you know, going to get him fired or whatever. And it just makes for a hugely satisfying and compelling source of drama when your protagonist is someone who is creating all of his own problems because he can't keep his mouth shut.
Yeah, I mean, I think Mank is a wonderful character, and I think the way this movie depicts him, like, it's not interested in deifying him, and it's not interested in completely like destroying him either. Like, it's just. I was about to say the word honest, and I want to be careful using that word, because I do think this movie takes a lot of creative liberties with the truth of the story. But when I say honest, I mean to the character, not the real person of Herman Mankiewicz. Like it is unafraid to fully look at his flaws, but it's also going to give him credit for the good things he did. I mean, I think it's really interesting that like we learn he was basically a Schindler to a lot of German Jews trying to escape from Germany. Like he sponsored and got a bunch of people over. He saved hundreds of lives. And so like, it's a wonderful moment where the caretaker character kind of is won over to him by recognizing that he did this incredible thing. But I mean, it's also like that there's this kind of push and pull for Mank between like actually doing something to solve problems in the world and just like complaining about it and talking about it and being furious about it, you know?
Yeah. I wanted to talk about the sort of lionization scene, which is, you know, where he's being manipulative and sneaky to try to get his alcohol. And you're sitting there like rolling your eyes like, okay, he's clearly an alcoholic, you know, they're trying to help him and he's fighting back. And you know, and then you realize, oh, he's a great guy. He saved all these Jews from the Holocaust. He gives money to people down on their luck.
Other people's money.
Yeah, other people's money. Yeah, that's pretty funny. Yeah. But like at the same time, it's usually like juxtaposed with the scene of him being a jerk, right? Or
yeah,
not a jerk per se, but a self-destructive fool, you could say. And I think that does kind of keep you nicely like off balance as to just like, are we supposed to think he's great? No, he's a self-destructive person with a heart of gold. But also he's just unable to control the impulses which are destroying him.
Yeah.
And it's hard for me to articulate like how everything just comes together so well by the end. I mean, I love it's interesting because there's a very clear plot, which I don't think I can articulate because I've only seen it once, and it's not a movie that you would call plotty, but it clearly has an arc, which has a lot to do with the fact that, like, for example, he can't keep himself from showing off how smart he is by insinuating that the studio should be making, you know, manipulative newsreels.
Yeah, he basically gives them the idea.
He gives them the idea, which they then do, and then he realizes that this undermines all of his own political convictions. Means that Bill Nye the Science Guy can't be governor of California.
Who is playing Upton Sinclair?
And also gets his friend killed, basically. Which I have to assume that's like a dramatic flourish, but maybe that really did happen. I don't know.
I kind of want to steer away from like trying to pick apart which parts of this movie are real and which aren't, because there's so many he said she said of this whole thing. I mean, like, for the longest time the narrative was indeed that like Orson Welles did not write a word of Citizen Kane, that this was all Mank and Orson didn't have any of it and just put his name on credit. That has kind of been debunked since then. So like, it's just, I don't want to mess with that. This is a movie, like we'll play with it as a movie on its own.
Right.
There's just a weird kind of gray area when you're talking about real people. So yeah, I don't know if that actually happened, but I mean, it is really interesting because it shows kind of Mank's, he loves what he does, but he also hates what he does. And like, there is this kind of current of, he sees himself as like a serious actor, or it's not a writer who like writes plays and Shakespeare and wants to write important things, but also the movies, especially at that time, were kind of seen as lesser, especially being a screenwriter in the movies at that time, were just seen as lesser. Like you weren't having really complicated scripts, really deep, beautiful inspections of humanity in movies at the time. And that's, I mean, that is one of the reasons that Citizen Kane is called the greatest film of all time, because it did so many things for the first time. And so I think Mank is kind of caught in the middle of this, where he's very self-destructive, but he's also very self-deprecating. And so it's like, he knows he's a good writer, but he also hates himself. And so he, like, doing screenplays and being this kind of writer is the way he punishes himself. And then to see that there's actual consequences for that, and he's just torn and in the middle of everything, and doesn't know what to do. And his kind of solution to this whole thing is to write this story that's just gonna rip apart a very rich, powerful man.
Yeah. I mean, he can't handle. He seems to feel guilty of his own success. He seems to feel that he's simultaneously too good to be a screenwriter, and also shouldn't be getting paid as much as he's getting paid for being a screenwriter. Yeah, I mean,
the for a movie that like shows the complicated nature of writers, it also kind of plays in a lot of very hilarious like screenwriter stereotypes, which is like, they don't fucking do anything, they never work. Like, every time we see them in the writer's room, they're just gambling or goofing off. And that wonderful scene at the beginning where they go pitch to was it Mayer? I can't remember which.
I don't remember. Yeah,
they go pitch a script that they're supposed to have been working on, and it's just them improvising and like passing the ball around the room. And that's a hilarious scene, and I love the way Fincher shoots it, but it is not kind to writers for sure.
Yeah, that's pretty funny. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It definitely it's funny because the movie is actually agnostic as to whether Mank is a good writer.
Yeah, I mean,
like, it almost doesn't matter.
It's so funny because like, I think they get to like, it's one of those things where whenever you do a movie about the creation of art, there's always a moment where you have to kind of be like, how do I convey to the audience that the thing they made was actually good? I think this is like one of the only movies that can get away with not doing that, because even if people haven't seen Citizen Kane, the thing that they know about Citizen Kane is that it's really good.
Yeah.
And it's considered one of the greatest films of all time. So you can just yada yada over it. And they like, we don't see a word from like, we don't see a word of his writing here. I think we see him kind of dictate some of the opening of the movie, but we really see nothing of Citizen Kane here. But ironically, we also really see a lot of Citizen Kane here, because so much of this movie is structured like Citizen Kane. Like the whole structure, the flashback sequence, the disjointed narrative is just taken directly from Citizen Kane. Like, this is exactly how it works. The only difference is in that movie, Kane is dead. In this movie, Mank is not quite dead yet. But it's very much aping that structure and that style. I mean, like the choice to do it in black and white. They actually shot this on an 8K monochrome camera, so it's not like they shot this in color and then just like grayscaled it. They're like a color version of this movie doesn't exist. They also used older microphones. They got the sound they wanted this to sound period. The angles that Fincher uses, the way he shoots the movie is supposed to feel like an old Hollywood movie. Like he really was really intent on making this movie look exactly like what Citizen Kane looked like and what movies at the time looked like.
Yeah. There's one sequence that stood out to me as being particularly feeling retro, which was one of the times when they're having a party at Hearst's house, and it's not a time that they're sitting around the dinner table. It's the time they're sitting in like a sitting room, and there's a guy at the piano.
Mm-hmm.
And it was interesting because it was like it was very affected in a way that was absolutely intentional, but just so distinct from Fincher's usual style that I was just very, because like, so all these people are sitting around in these luxurious chairs and couches and so forth, and like they're just like talking at like a normal volume, and when they talk, the camera will like snap over to them, and be right in their face. And what struck me was like these people couldn't like hear each other if they were talking at that volume. This isn't how people would be behaving actually. But you bought that, like, no, we're doing a thing here. We're doing that. This is the idiom of how we pretended that people behaved in old films.
They're like 12 feet away from each other, and a man in the middle of the room is playing a piano to kind of he gives them a score to the conversation. I really loved that scene.
I did too.
Is that the one where Marion Davies accidentally like mentions that Hearst has basically handpicked the cabinet for FDR's presidency? I think it is. I think it is that scene, because
I'm not sure. Yeah. Maybe.
I love about it, because that whole scene has this kind of sing-songy jokiness to it, where Fincher's like having a lot of fun, and it's like very clever people talking, and Mank is kind of pushing back on things and giving commentary on things. And I love his line about like, everyone knows the difference between a socialist and a communist is a socialist.
You share the wealth.
We share all the wealth, and the communists, we share the poverty, which was just great. And then like the second Marion Davies mentions Hearst picking the cabinet, like the whole tone of the room changes. And like the part of it is the piano cuts out, but like the way Fincher shoots it, like he goes to close-ups and shows people's uncomfort with what was just said, and she immediately knows she's done something wrong. And it's really, really wonderful, just like within the scene editing and camera placement to totally depict this complete change in tone. I loved it so much.
It's interesting. I guess there's a connection to be made to the game here, actually, where we talked about how in the game, like everything in his house is like way too big, and it's like this enormous house. It kind of reminds me of how like everything in Hearst's house, it gives this enormous sense of cavernous space. The people are like too spread out and like dwarfed by it. And I think the angles the camera chooses tend to make everyone feel even more like smaller and sort of repressed by the grandiosity of what's around them.
100%.
I love that.
I also really love the scene that follows that one, where kind of Marion Davies has escaped outside and is like at the stone bench with a hidden compartment with a phone in it, but that's also where she keeps her liquor. And the way that scene is shot, I think they did all the night scenes as day for night, which just means they shot it during the day and then they like use camera tricks to make it look darker. And it kind of shows, because I think that's like how they used to do it, when they just didn't have lights that were big enough and powerful enough to light the scene enough for those old cameras to pick up enough light to work. So they like had to shoot it during the day. And it makes like the background has this like artificial, like I think the moon is in that scene, and it's just like way too big and artificial. And I think it's all part of this idea that like, it's this feels like an older movie. It just totally feels that way.
Yeah. And I mean, the performances are also, I think probably especially Amanda Seyfried is doing the old timey style of performing. I mean, not only is she playing a character who has that accent, which as far as I can tell doesn't exist anymore, but also just like the way she is acting with her body and her face and her voice, and just every decision is sort of made to be more like the old style, not sort of not the naturalistic style that you would associate with pretty much any other Fincher film.
Yeah, and I mean, she's also doing like a pitch perfect Marion Davies. Like she's doing a very, very good job. She's incredible in this movie. I think, I can't remember. I think she got an Academy Award nomination for this. I don't know if I don't think she won. But actually, no, she didn't. Hold on, let me check. She did. Okay, she won. She won. Okay, good. She won for this, and she deserves it. She's absolutely incredible in this movie. I think the most interesting thing about this movie to me is the women in it, because I think they hold up a lot of the movie in really interesting ways, and I think they show a side of Mank that is not great, because he kind of treats all the women in his life like shit.
Yeah.
Like between the woman who took care of him, whose husband is off at war, the British woman, between Marion Davies, and then his wife Sarah, who has just like throughout the movie, she's just totally in the background and just like treated as an appendage of his, and like she's constantly helping him and taking care of their children, who I don't think we ever see, because
Right.
Mank is not interested in them. So so the movie's not interested in them.
Yeah, I was just gonna comment how that's also strikes me as a very Fincher touch to just be like that. Now that he doesn't care, it doesn't matter. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, he just kind of treats the women in his life like shit, and I love the ways they push back against him. Like his wife's final scene where she's like, "I have put up with your shit for so long, like you're gonna straighten up and you're gonna get your shit together, and you're gonna like apologize to Louis B. Mayer and get your old job back and like be a supportive husband and father." And he doesn't, like, even after that speech, like it's a wonderfully triumphant speech that like you can tell really affects him. He doesn't do any of that stuff. He doesn't. I mean, he wins the Academy Award for this movie. Awesome, great. He doesn't ever write another screenplay ever again.
He just goes and becomes an alcoholic.
Yeah, and he just drinks himself to death, literally.
I mean, I don't know if this is true, but like my reading was like he probably couldn't have gotten his job back. I got the feeling like Hearst had basically blacklisted him and said, "This guy pissed me off." Hearst is exactly the kind of person who would do that.
Yeah,
I think both in real life and as established in the movie.
Yeah, but that's only because he demanded credit on the movie. Like if Orson Welles was the only name on this, maybe he could have gotten away with plausible deniability.
Yes, good point.
But he demanded credit for it, and therefore he ensured the death of his career. And that's the twist of this movie, if you can even call it that I love the most, is that throughout the movie, Gary Oldman's Mank is talking about the organ grinder's monkey again and again. Someone asks him why he's writing this movie and making it about Hearst. He mentions the organ grinder's monkey. I think he does it 2 or 3 times throughout the movie. He keeps bringing this thing up, and everyone around him is like, what the fuck are you talking about? And then the end of the movie, when he goes on his drunken tirade in the Hearst house, where he basically like drunkenly comes up with the entire plot of Citizen Kane in like 30 seconds. This incredible speech by Charles Dance's Hearst, who basically calls him the organ grinder's monkey, which is like this man who thinks he's the center of attention and everyone is there for him, but is actually just being controlled by the organ grinder the whole time, who is Charles Hearst. Like, one of the things we learn is William Hearst is he's been paying half his salary, not because he likes his writing, but just because he likes Mank and he finds him clever. And so like everything Mank has been doing throughout this whole thing is just part of Hearst's like entertainment and enjoyment.
Yeah.
And so I think the reveal there at the end is he's not writing Citizen Kane about William Hearst because he helped Upton Sinclair lose the election. He's not writing about it because his friend, the director, killed himself after being his guilt for being responsible for this terrible propaganda he created. He's not writing it for his politics. He's not writing it for Marion, obviously. He's doing it because he wants to prove to Hearst that he is not the organ grinder's monkey, that he can do his own thing. And I think the movie in the end says, no, you are, though, because he never worked again.
Right. And this is why he drinks himself to death. I mean, I
Yeah.
think you get the sense that so many of the choices that he makes are things that he does because he thinks he needs to do them so that he can look in the mirror and have some feeling that he has integrity. Like that's and he, because he does see himself as being in opposition to all of these, you know, all the people he works with, because he sees them all as being corrupt and thieving and dishonest, and he's just constantly at war with them. But then he has to have a job and support his family, and so he works with them anyway. And it's like this is the tension that is making him miserable. And I mean,
he knows Louis B. Mayer is a piece of shit, and he still works for MGM for years. I mean, like, I actually love, like, man, all the parts of this movie are so good. Like, there's a lot of Sorkin-isms in this movie, actually, just with the speed of the dialogue. But that walk and talk with Mayer, where he's like explaining what the movie industry is, and he's like, this is the only industry where we give people our dreams, and then we still own them when they walk out of the theater, and all they own is their memories. And he's like this wonderful speech about like the power of movies, and then immediately shifts to this performance in front of his entire staff, where he cuts their pay in half and dodges a question about, oh, will your pay be cut in half, Louis? LB, are you going to take a pay cut? No, of course not. This man is despicable and awful, and yet he doesn't do anything. I mean, that's one of the things that's really interesting about Mank, is he doesn't do anything. Like, he's disgusted by the propaganda against Upton Sinclair. Did he do anything for Sinclair? Like, the movie doesn't show that. The movie doesn't show him like there's the one scene where he like sees him talking and obviously agrees with what he has to say, agrees with his politics, agrees with and wants him to win. But like, did he donate to that campaign? Like, they needed money bad. We don't see, the movie isn't interested in showing us whether Mank donated to his campaign, supported him. We see poor people attempting to help out a Sinclair. And it's just like with the lended money. He sees a guy suffering on the street. He doesn't lend him his money. He lends him someone else's money. And it's just like, he means well, but he's not actually interested in acting.
Yeah. He never takes the correct action at the correct moment. He takes the wrong action and then he tries to pay penance. I think this is the best I can do for articulating what he does, because perfect example, not only does he not help Sinclair, he actively he probably plays a big role in destroying Sinclair's chances just because he couldn't help himself. And then at the party, election night, he basically sets up a situation where he knows he's going to lose, like, what, $20,000, something ridiculous, right?
24 grand.
24
in
grand,
1934,
which is probably like a house, basically, like literally, right? And he's not. It's not like he's wealthy, right? And he does that. He knows he's going to lose. He does that to be like, fuck you. I'm gonna just do this because I deserve this. Like, this is what he does to himself over and over. And it's very frustrating, obviously, to have a character, to have like your film protagonist is being this way, but it's one of these kind of biopic films where you're that's the point, right?
yeah. For reference, 24 grand is $500,000 today. A lot of money. And he can't give a buck to a poor guy on the street. He has to take it from the gate guard, who I'm sure makes oodles of money, right? I mean, he's kind of a walking contradiction in a lot of ways, and I love that, because that's people. That's a real character. That's a real person that is a bit of a hypocrite constantly, and believes all these things and wants to do all these things, and isn't actually willing to do anything about it, except you're absolutely right, the exact wrong thing. That 24 grand, I'm sure Sinclair would have loved that money 2 months before the election, instead of you betting on his victory after he's already lost.
Another example of this pattern would be when he mouths off about like the turning radius of a Messerschmitt, when if he was paying attention, he would realize that his assistant has just got a letter that says her husband's probably dead. And then he feels terrible about it, like immediately feels exactly the right level of shame and remorse for what he did.
Mm-hmm.
And does he go apologize to her? No, he goes and he drinks a bottle of like surgery anesthetic basically, and passes out, and then like that just never comes up again.
Mm-hmm.
Like she tries to talk to him and he's unconscious, which is a perfect sign of like, no, he doesn't solve the problem, he just punishes himself, and then the problem remains unsolved.
Yeah, and it's really interesting because the response to that to me is, and yet all these people want to be around him. That's kind of one of the contradictions of Mank, is that like people really like him. People like, he's funny, he's fun to talk to, he's fun to be around. People want to be around him. Like Hearst wanted him around. Marion Davies wanted him around. His wife put up with him. This British woman that was helping him kind of really bonded with him over the course of them writing Citizen Kane. And I think that's really fascinating, because I actually read a review about this movie that was like, I just don't, like, why would these people want this man around? He's so awful. And I was like, no, but yes, he is, but he's also funny and clever and lively, and he's just really good at being the center of attention.
Yeah, I mean, whoever said that has never been around a witty alcoholic. There is a magnetism of the kind of person who is very intelligent in destroying themselves, and it's sort of romantic. I mean, I don't condone this at all as a human being, but you have to admit that there's an allure to a person who is behaving in that like they're on the borderline of sanity. You never know what they're going to do next. You never know what he's going to say next. He's always, especially somebody like Hearst, who's surrounded by ass kissers, really values somebody like Mank, who's going to tell the truth no matter whether it's going to destroy him. And the fact of who Mank is he just pushes it until he pushes it too far and actually pisses him off.
Yeah.
I love that they call him the court jester a couple of times, because that's like another perfectly accurate thing that is also like exactly the thing that's just going to piss off Mank and just drive him to write this movie.
Yeah, because like again, to go back to the contradiction, he plays up to that part. He knows he's the court jester and he plays into it, but he also feels like he's above that and he's better than all these people. And how can you be both those things at the same time, Mank? Well, you just do it. It's just like you can be a brilliant screenwriter and a absolute alcoholic at the same time.
Right.
Yeah. It's a fascinating character. I think it's a fascinating story, regardless of how much of it is actually true. I think kind of maybe where we should take the conversation now is just like talk about Fincher's choice to even make this movie, because I think, as you pointed out, stylistically it's very different from Fincher's normal movie. I think just like the writing is very different from the type of themes Fincher usually likes to explore, and as we talked about at the beginning of the episode, it's a very personal movie for him because his dad wrote it. So this feels like if any project is going to push a director away from their normal thing, it's going to be a project that has some sort of huge sentimental value to it.
Yeah, sure. I don't know much about this, so if you want to elaborate, that'd be interesting to me.
It's just, I mean, his father, Jack Fincher, like was a writer and wrote this screenplay before he died, and it's like the only screenplay he's ever. It's the only credit he has to his name. He's written other screenplays most likely, but it's the only one that's ever been made into a movie. I believe he died in early 2000s. And so I think this is just something that's incredibly personal to David Fincher. And I mean, to that point, you wonder, like, scripts change in production all the time, right? Like you're working through a movie and you realize, oh, this works on the page, it doesn't work on set, we got to change things around. You kind of wonder how much and how willing Fincher was to make changes to the story, the parts of the story that maybe didn't work. Because I mean, it doesn't feel like the script from someone who's never written any other scripts before.
Yeah, right. I admit I was kind of thinking along these lines. Like he apparently, like you said, he was a writer. He was a by trade a journalist and a screenwriter. he said he also wrote. He wrote he wrote a script that was merged to become The Aviator with another script. I don't know if that sentence came out. Anyway, so maybe he just was really awesome at writing and it didn't need any work. But it's hard. See, that's the thing. I don't think that I can look at this movie and say, oh, I can see David Fincher's fingerprints all over the story. Like, no, I can't. This doesn't even really feel like a Fincher movie to me, because the whole visual aesthetic is different. He doesn't do any of the things that we've talked about him doing, other than, I think, specifically the fact that he probably cuts more than... See, that's the thing. I was going to say he cuts more than most directors would, but actually, he's restraining himself on the cuts because he's trying to ape this old style. So really, it's just like every touch of David Fincher is gone, and it's kind of that in itself is kind of interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I think the only part of this that we can say is absolutely David Fincher is what it was like to be on set, because he did do his typical Fincher thing, which is, we're going to make you do this. You're going to do 200 takes if I need you to do 200 takes. Amanda Seyfried said they did one scene that she didn't even have speaking lines in for an entire week to get her reaction right. And that's just kind of the way David Fincher is. I think, like, it's so funny because Seyfried obviously honored to work with him, probably would work with him again, but also very candid about what it was like working with him. I think the same thing with Gary Oldman. I think he just exhausted Gary Oldman because he's just so particular. And I think maybe, you take Fincher's normal kind of neurotic particularness to how he wants a scene to go, and you maybe add the emotional aspect of bringing to life his father's project, and I don't know, you maybe create a monster a little bit there. I mean, I don't think he abused any of his actors or anything, but he certainly worked them very, very hard and exhausted them. And I mean, Gary Oldman's not a young guy anymore. He's in his 60s. He was playing a 43-year-old or a 37-year-old, depending on which year this movie is in. But he's not an old man, or he's not a young man. And so I think he was just really, really exhausted. But hey, they got a good performance out of him. And I actually wonder if the exhaustion like feeds into it a little bit here, because like so much of what Oldman doing here is just a very unwell man. Like, he's 43, yes, but he's been drinking himself to death for the last 20 years. And so he's an old 43.
Yeah. He looks terrible. Honestly.
Yeah, he looks awful. Awful.
Like, because the funny thing is, Gary Oldman's like a handsome guy. I don't know if he put on weight for the movie or if he's wearing like an actual fat suit, because he has like quite a gut. And just yeah, it's just terrible. It's all just terrible. It's I wonder how actors feel about being asked to do that many takes. Like at a certain point, are they like, come on?
Yeah, I think they fucking hate it. I think they fucking hate it. I mean, like, it's very hard. Like, I think one of the biggest problems, and maybe like this is pure supposition, we don't actually know, but I think one of the things, you want a certain thing, and sometimes it is very difficult to convey to someone else what you want. Like, because you're not even sure. It's like I'll know it when I see it type of thing. Uh-huh. But how do you convey that to an actor efficiently and effectively? Like honestly, like, I love David Fincher. I love his movies. I think having to take 200 takes is a failure. I think as a director, you have failed to convey to your actors what you want. Uh-huh. It shouldn't take that many takes to get what you want. It just shouldn't.
Yeah.
And so, like, I think he's very particular. And I think the problem is, as a director, you get big and, you have the money, and also people just like won't say no to you anymore. You become like your own kind of Charles Hurst, and you get worse and worse and worse. And no one's going to push back on you. And I think that's a problem. Like, I do. I love Fincher. I love his movies. I love how precise and particular the scenes are, and the composition and the cutting and the framing. I love all these things. But yeah, there's no fucking reason why it has to take that many takes.
I mean, it's interesting because I think I might just I might just be like wrong about this, but it strikes me that, you know, the act of making a film is collaborative, and if the actor has their idea of how the scenes of how their character is going to be in this scene, and they actually have a good understanding of the character, and they understand what the movie's trying to do, and they're of the caliber of, for example, Gary Oldman, then like I would just be like, yeah, sure, Gary, you know, we'll do 3 or 4 takes to make sure that, you know, we catch everything we need, but we don't need to do 25 takes, because like what am I going to tell Gary Oldman about how to act?
Yeah.
Right now, I'm not David Fincher, right? So that's why I might be wrong. Is like David Fincher probably knows exactly what he wants, right? He knows what he wants to a degree that I can't even conceive of.
Sure.
And I hear what you're saying though about like, well, if that's the case, then why can't he communicate that more efficiently?
It's his job to communicate what he wants to an actor in a way that they can then give him what he wants. So I don't know. I'm so torn about it, right? Because obviously his movies are fantastic. I love his movies. So like something he's doing is working, but I'm just like, are you trying to change? Like, are you trying to get better about this? Or is it like, well, I only write well and fast when I'm drunk. So give me my alcohol, give me my 200 takes, you know, like, have we stopped pushing back against him?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Cause I honestly don't know how I feel about this. You're hearing me work it out in real time, because it's like, it's like, is it that bad to just make people earn their pay? Like, I mean, clearly everybody, you know, it's funny because everybody except the actors who were literally in front of the camera is doing the same job over and over and over and over and over, regardless. They're moving the lights, and they're tuning up the microphones, and they're doing all the stuff they're supposed to do. And and it's not like we would say to them, like, don't you feel bad that he makes you like set up the microphones for every scene? It's like, no, that's your job. It's literally your entire job. So like to say that it's bad to ask, like, I think the problem with, I think what I'm trying to get to, it's not even that complicated. I'm just having a hard time saying it. Like the problem is just like, this seems like a waste of everyone's time. Like it seems like after a certain number of takes, you either probably have what you need, or you're messing something up somewhere, right? I think we're good. I think I'm just taking a few passes to try to articulate this.
Yeah, and I mean, it's like the whole thing, like movie making is such a long process, and I think one thing this movie does really, really well is show, you know, actually when Mank first meets Marion Davies, where she's just standing up on top of that funeral pyre, which, by the way, amazing shot. Like the first time we meet her, she's like hoisted above him like 2 feet. Like, so like you can see her superiority to him, but also she's on a bonfire to be like sacrificed, which is kind of exactly what he does to her at the end of the movie by making a character that is her in this movie. Like Citizen Kane is not kind to Kane's love interest in the movie. So if Kane is Hearst, then this character is Marion Davies, and it's not a flattering depiction of this person. It's you know, basically Kane spends millions of dollars to get, like, in Citizen Kane, she's an opera singer, and he spends millions and millions of dollars to get people to go, like, to get her an opportunity to be an opera singer, and like she's not good, she's terrible, and no one likes it, and it's a complete failure of his that he like was completely unable to give this woman a career using just his money. And so like that's not a kind thing to say about Marion Davies there at all. She by the way claims that she's never seen the movie and won't ever see the movie, but to get back to my point, that scene is she's just like standing around waiting for them to set up for the next take. And that is so much of what movie making is. It is just 100 people sitting around while like 3 people do their job to get ready. And then you go and everyone's working for like 30 seconds. And then you either get it and you move on, which is another, 30 minutes to an hour for a different setup, or you got to roll it back and redo it. And that's another 10, 15 minutes while it's just a lot of sitting around. It's very slow and very boring. And it's got to be even worse when you're doing that many insane amounts of takes. Like I'm just imagining that week that Amanda Seyfried is talking about, like just going to work for 8 hours a day to shoot one scene in which she's not even speaking. So like any other director, that would just be coverage. Like you would just be getting coverage. She's not the speaking person. You're just like getting her reaction to the line of dialogue. Most directors would shoot that in like 2 takes and go like, okay, got it. But he wanted like a particular movement from her, a particular reaction or particular whatever. And it just sounds miserable.
Yeah, it does. It's funny because I have to be open to the idea that David Fincher is just so much better at the art of movies than I am, that he's right. Like,
yeah, I mean that's true. Like it's a little like being like, God, why is this guy taking so long to solve this quantum physics equation? Like it seems like he should be able to solve this thing way quicker than, and I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. Like I see what you mean there. Like he's obviously a very talented director, and so he understands something about movie making that we don't.
Yeah, I mean, there's a certain inspiration component. Like I like actually what Mank says in the movie, where he's writing, and I believe like the assistants are telling him like it's good, or maybe the guy who is kind of paying for everything is telling him it's great, but Mank is complaining like, yeah, but none of it sings. And that strikes me as being similar to what we're talking about, where it's like, I think when you're an artist, you either know, if it's right.
Sure.
It's interesting sorry, that's kind of incites a tangent in my mind, which is like, it seemed to me that Mank was frustrated with the way the script was going and didn't actually think it was that great until people started telling him it was the best thing he'd ever written. And then he started saying it was the best thing he'd ever written, and then he had to get credit for it. And it was like interesting because I don't know if I'm projecting there, but it seemed like he didn't even realize how important it was going to be until other people pointed it out to him.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair. I do think like there's this, we do kind of big time jump between, okay, fine, you get your alcohol, and then the script's done, so it seems like, oh, when he was lubricated, he finally started bringing out his genius. But yeah, I mean, you're right. He never reads his script on his own and goes, oh my God, this is great. And actually, like, the only time he compliments his script is he's repeating his brother's words verbatim. Like right. He's using the exact same language. So I think you're onto something there, that maybe he was never even really convinced that it was that good, but everyone kept saying it.
In fact, now I totally think that's correct. When he says, when Orson Welles is like, why are you demanding the credit now? And he says, because it's the greatest thing I've ever written. I actually now believe that's just an excuse. It's because he wants Hearst to know that he wrote it.
Yeah.
That's all. That's all there is. It's the same thing as losing $25,000 for no reason. It's ruining his career just so that Hearst knows that he's not an organ grinder's monkey.
Mm-hmm. But he is. You were, Mank. You were. What a movie. I really, really liked it. Doof. I'm not sure how much I liked it though, and that kind of moves us into our next section.
7.
What?
Huh?
No, we got to start at the bottom. We got to start with the word. What?
I'm just saying what ranked. Oh, okay, sorry.
See, you confuse me because are you saying what numbers, or are you saying the movie 7? Because that really confused
I'm trying
me.
to throw you off so that I have the advantage in the upcoming negotiations.
I see. All right, we're going to start with number 11, the worst David Fincher movie. Matt, what do you think here?
Curious Case of Benjamin Button.
So, okay, I think it's a toss-up between The Curious Case of Benjamin Button and The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo.
I will agree that those are the belong at the bottom of the list. Yes.
I think The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo is worse.
God damn it, Scott.
But I'm willing to relent to you and put Curious Case of Benjamin Button at the bottom.
We'll have to trade. I'll owe you one. We'll
exactly. I'm playing the long game here.
Yeah, it's funny. So you're getting me to make a concession early, or All right.
So I mean, yeah, I like this movie a whole lot more than you did, but I'm willing willing to lay this down here. I think it's fun. We were talking about before we started. The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo is a movie that neither of us liked very much at all.
Yeah.
And like we got a comment on that episode. I didn't even notice it till recently, but we got a comment on an episode that was basically just like, you guys didn't understand this movie at all. And I mean, like maybe we didn't, but like I just did not think it was a good movie.
Yeah, evidently not, I guess. If you want to explain it to me, then please do, because I didn't like it. It's funny because now that you say that, I'm like, that could be at the bottom actually, but I'm sort of agnostic between these two.
I think your hatred of Benjamin Button is definitely higher than your dislike of Girl with the Dragon Tattoo.
Yes.
I think Girl with the Dragon Tattoo is a movie you did not like. I think Benjamin Button is a movie that made you angry.
Yes. And bored, which is almost as bad. Yeah.
All right, number 9. So 2 down. This is hard, Matt. This is really hard. I'm gonna throw out The Game for number 9.
Okay.
A movie like I really remembered loving and expected to really like, and just found myself pretty disappointed by.
Yeah. I think you're right. It's.
So are we in agreement on this one?
I agree. Yeah.
Okay. What are you thinking for 8?
I'm thinking Panic Room.
Panic Room. Okay. See, I thought Alien 3 would fit better there.
Yeah, I was going back and forth between Alien 3 and Panic Room.
Okay, so let's talk about this for a sec. Which Alien 3 or Panic Room? Alien 3 is a movie that I think is better than it has any right to be, considering how troubled a production it was. I think it's better than most people consider it.
But it is a mess. It
is a mess.
It's a mess of a movie for reasons that are not, strictly speaking, his fault.
Yeah.
I think Panic Room is a movie that I would watch any day over Alien 3. So
I think you're right. And again, like I loved doing the Alien 3 episode because I really enjoyed visiting that movie, and I fell in love with it in a way I hadn't in the past. But it is, if I'm being honest with myself, I like it in spite of its flaws.
Yeah.
So if I'm ranking it on a list, it feels like it needs to be closer to the bottom.
And I think above Alien 3 is the cut of just like, well, everything above here is just like good, actually.
Yeah.
Because Panic Room is not bad. It's got a lot. It's got a lot to it. It's just a very simple movie, and it doesn't soar the way the rest of the movies on this list do.
Sure. So at 7, we're putting Panic Room. Then 6 feels right for Mank for me.
Let me see.
So the ones we have left are Gone Girl, The Social Network, Zodiac, Fight Club, 7, and Mank. Of those 6 movies, Mank feels right for 6 to me.
Yeah, I think Mank or Gone Girl go at about this spot.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Let's pick at that for a bit, because so I really like both of these movies. I think if I'm ranking Fincher, this is my opinion. I think if I'm ranking Fincher, I'm gonna put the movie that feels more like a Fincher movie ahead of the movie that really doesn't feel like a Fincher movie, but is still a very good movie. Yeah,
sure, I can go with that. I think depending on what side of the bed I wake up on, I might rank Gone Girl and Mank in a different order.
So we're kind of agreeing that Gone Girl and Mank are going to be 5 and 6.
Yeah.
So it's just which order that's in.
I think like you said at first, I think Mank and then Gone Girl.
Okay. So Mank is 6, Gone Girl is 7. And then we get into the bottom, or I guess the top 4, right? Which are The Social Network, Zodiac, Fight Club, and 7. These are our big Fincher 4.
Yeah.
This is actually going to be, I think, like we said we were going to fight and we were mostly kidding. I think that it's been easy up until this point, and I think this is going to be difficult.
This is where we're going to have a problem, Scott, because now we're at number 4. And I don't know if I've had the courage to say this to you, but I don't think Zodiac is better than these other 3 movies.
Absolutely not. This is where I'm putting my foot down. Absolutely not.
Okay.
Zodiac is not a 4.
Okay. No. Okay. Zodiac might be better than The Social Network.
I don't know. if I'm being you're not going to like this, Matt.
Uh-huh.
Fight Club is feeling pretty good at 4 for me.
Okay. All right, hold on. It's Fight Club though.
It's a great movie. All these movies are great movies. It's just which are the greater movies. And
maybe we need to. It's interesting how we haven't talked about 7 because
I can't like.
I'm not going to put 7 on number 4. I'm just saying it's interesting that it hasn't even come up yet.
I feel like we're both putting 7 aside because it's going to be in the top 2, like for sure. That's what I feel like.
You're right. It's just we can't agree on what the other one that's going to be in the top 2 is going to be.
Yeah.
Because The Social Network is not it's a great movie. It's what's funny is like its biggest drawback is that it's just dated now. It's like
sure
it's almost quaint because of like what has happened to the world since the movie, which is not the movie's fault at all. And it's a great movie, but
it's also one of the best movies of the last decade. So I would be okay. Maybe this is another way to attack this. I would be okay with The Social Network at 3.
Okay, well, what would you put it for then?
I mean, I told you I put Fight Club. Yeah,
no, I forgot that already because I can't believe it. Okay, how is The Social Network better than Fight Club? Just tell me this.
Here's like Fight Club is a very good movie. I don't understand why it's as revered as it is. Like I enjoy the movie very much. I had a good time with it. I think this is a really fun conversation because I think both movies are talking about their generations in a certain way. Like Fight Club is a movie very much about the late 90s disaffected male youth, idea, and Social Network is very much talking about a later 2000s, early 2010s kind of disaffected male youth, and it's actually fascinating to watch how much has changed in that intervening time to see how different those two movies are, helmed by the same person but about completely different types of men.
Are you remembering all the scenes where he does the touristing through the focus groups?
Are you remembering all the scenes in The Social Network where the soundtrack and the acting and the directing is in perfect unison to create some of the best one-on-one conversation scenes in the history of the world?
Yeah, it's not. I'm not okay. Look, it's not. I'm not feeling change. I'm not feeling my opinion change on this at all. Actually,
here. Will you agree to Fight Club at 3?
I'd be okay with Fight Club at 3. Yes.
Okay. I'm gonna relent on this, and people might give me shit for it, but I'm gonna give you Social Network for Fight Club 3.
Okay.
If only to keep things moving.
I'd be surprised if people gave you shit about this because Fight Club is like look, I'm just going to briefly say people get, I think, too confused about like the conversation around Fight Club.
I think that's true.
And they forget that Fight Club is just a banging movie.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a great movie to watch. Like I don't like setting aside all of the what do you think it's saying? Like number one, all of the readings contemporaneous with it coming out were wrong anyway. So like, forget about that. And then number two, just watch it. Like if you haven't watched it in a while, watch it again. It's a great movie. Anyway, okay, good. I'm calm now.
Okay, so before we get into the final two, let's kind of recap where we're at right now.
Okay.
11, we have The Curious Case of Benjamin Button. 10, we have The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. 9, we have The Game. 8, Alien 3. 7, Panic Room. 6, Mank. 5, Gone Girl. 4, The Social Network. 3, Fight Club. And we are left with 2 movies to fit in these final 2 spots. We have Zodiac and we have 7, 2 serial killer movies. Seems very fitting for David Fincher for these last 2 spots to be David Fincher serial killer movies. So which is the better one?
So I know how this is all going to go down already. I just want to hear you tell me why Zodiac is the best David Fincher movie. I just want you to do that.
Zodiac is the best David Fincher movie because Zodiac as a movie would not work under any other director, because it is this fascinating, confused, unsatisfying mess of a story that has no end, really. And yet David Fincher allows us to take a journey with these characters as they struggle in vain to find a solution to a problem that they don't fully understand. I think all the characters are so fascinating and realized, and yet it's almost as if we just get to like see a glimpse of their life as we go through, as they, continue to search for this guy and can't find him. I think the direction is incredible. I think the scene where they're interviewing the guy in the factory is just one of the best scenes ever shot on camera ever. The way it conveys everything it needs to, the way this movie conveys tension, and it's a perfect movie. It's a perfect movie.
Okay. All right.
And Seven's really good.
Seven's a great movie. And the thing about Seven is, a big part of why it's a great movie is the script. And what you just said is no other director could have made Zodiac work. I think that there are other directors who could have made Seven work, because Seven's just an incredibly good script.
I think it would not have been as good of a movie, but I think another director could direct that.
Obviously, Fincher finds the heart of it and makes it sing, as Mank would say. But but since this is a deconstructing director series and we're focusing on directing, I do completely agree that Zodiac shows off his talents, I think, probably better than any movie on this list, and is just a great movie. So I don't really feel like fighting you on this one. I just wanted to hear your story about it.
I mean, I think at the end of the day, like, these are like since we got to number 4, these have all been like all-time like great life-changing movies, right? So like ranking, it's like ranking 4 giant diamonds. It's like, this one has a little blemish on it, but I still have a fucking diamond in my hand. But so I think we've got it. So that list again: Curious Case of Benjamin Button, Last, The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, 10, The Game, 9, Alien 3, 8, 7, Panic Room, 6, Mank, 5, Gone Girl, 4, The Social Network, 3, Fight Club, 2, 7, and the number 1 David Fincher movie is Zodiac.
All right.
I'm pretty happy with this list. I'm pretty happy. I obviously didn't get everything I wanted, but I'm happy enough. Because I got you to move Zodiac from 4 to 1, and that feels like a victory to me.
I did. What's funny is as you continued to sing the praises of Zodiac, I began to remember the specific things about it that were really great, and that worked. But. Yeah,
I mean, gosh, 7's such a good movie, though. I think 7 is a more watchable movie than Zodiac. Like, if I'm trying to be honest with myself. Like, if I turn on the TV and a Fincher movie was playing, which one would I most likely watch to the end? It would probably be 7, because I think the conclusion of 7 is just so satisfying in how it's horrifying. But I think Zodiac's the better movie.
Yeah, it's funny because that's a hard question. I mean, I think any of these top like 5, actually, I'd probably watch if it was playing. You know, I mean, the only reason I don't say Mank is like, well, it's just kind of a slower type of story. It's not. Yeah. I mean, Fincher, he tends to tell these very propulsive, edge of your seat, like that's his forte is tension. And Mank, I mean, doesn't have no tension. It actually has a lot of really tense scenes where you're like, oh my god, what is he going to say? Shut up, Mank! Just close your mouth. But it's slower paced. So. Yeah.
I mean, it's like Citizen Kane. Like, I love Citizen Kane. I would probably not put it as my, the best movie of all time. I totally understand. I'm not one of those people that is like, ugh, these stupid critics just put it there because everyone else does. Like, I totally get why this is such a beloved movie, and I loved watching it, and I revisit it every so often. But Citizen Kane is not a movie that I'm going to just like turn on, on a Thursday night and just be like, all right, let's just chill with the movie for a while. But like Social Network, Fight Club, 7, Zodiac, I think all those are movies that I would do that with.
Yeah. Yeah, me too.
All right, so that is the definitive David Fincher list. It has been decided, and so it shall be forever. Do you think, here, Matt, David Fincher, 11 movies, he's going to make more movies. Do you think there's a chance for another David Fincher movie to come along and unseat any of our top 4?
That's an interesting question. I'm going to say it's possible. My justification is that I think my favorite Ridley Scott movie might be The Martian.
Wow. That's a statement.
And that
guy's made like 30 movies.
And that's Gladiator used to be my favorite movie. I don't know how often I say that, but for a long time, Gladiator was my favorite movie. Which he also directed. The point is, he's late in his career and he still made that great movie. So there's nothing to say. I think directing is one of those things that people actually just get better at over time. So it's entirely possible, especially if he finds the right script, the right idea. I think it's entirely possible.
Matt, our boy Ridley Scott has 2 movies coming out this year. 2. He's like 70 something.
Yeah.
He got 2 movies coming out this year. Do you even know what they are? You don't even know what they are.
No, I don't know. I don't really keep up with Ridley Scott, actually, even though apparently he's got my favorite movies.
He has House of Gucci, which is the Adam Driver and Lady Gaga led story of Gucci.
Okay.
And then he has what is the other one? The Last Duel, which is a historical story about King Charles VI and his troubles with his wife.
Okay.
It stars Matt Damon and 2 Ridley Scott Adam Driver movies coming out this year. But it also stars Matt Damon and Ben Affleck together again in a Ridley Scott movie. It looks very good. I like Ridley Scott a lot. I think you're wild to say that The Martian is his best movie.
Did I say best? I think I did.
No,
say
you said
best.
favorite. You said favorite.
Okay. Yeah.
I think one of the fun things is, how when you search in IMDb for a director, like if you enter the first few letters of their name, like their thing will come up.
Yeah.
For Ridley Scott, when I do that, it says Ridley Scott, producer, The Martian. And I'm like, really, IMDb? Like that's like that. That's not even that he directed it, but like the producer, Ridley Scott, best known for producing the 2015 movie The Martian.
That's what he's known for. Yep.
I'm really curious other stuff. Let's see what Quentin Tarantino. Tarantino, writer, Reservoir Dogs. What the fuck?
It's probably like alphabetical or chronological or something ridiculous.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. But I mean, that like Reservoir Dogs, first movie writer, Ridley Scott, one of his later movies, producer. It's weird.
It's funny because I was like, oh, I must have missed some Ridley Scott movies because he said he directed so many, and then I was like looking down this list and I'm like, no, I've actually seen most of these. I just like forgot he directed them. So
yeah, I do think one day it would be fun to do a deconstructing series on him because he's really interesting director where I don't know if I can nail down his style per se because he does such different things.
Well, I guess that means we need to figure it out.
There's just so many movies here, Matt. There's so many movies. Like how can a guy make Hannibal and Black Hawk Down in the same year? He did it. He's
a beast. He is. But we probably will end up covering him at some point. You're right.
There's just like 20 something movies on here though. And that'd be one of our longest deconstructing series ever.
Yeah. Well, we'll see.
Known for The Martian, producer, Blade Runner, producer, Thelma and Louise, producer, Gladiator, producer. How does IMDb decide this?
There's an algorithm that I'm sure has very little thought put into it.
Wait, you spoke with Ridley Scott? Thelma and Louise producer Ridley Scott? No way. Ridiculous. Hey, how about we wrap this episode up?
Yeah, that sounds good.
All right, folks, that's all we had for you guys this week. If you are still listening and you haven't seen the movie Mank, you can go see it right now. It's on Netflix. It will be on Netflix forever because they're never going to let it go. They just wanted some Oscars and then they buried it. It's a weird time we live in. But if you have any opinions on Mank or on David Fincher or Ridley Scott, you can reach out to us via email at doofmedia@gmail.com or over on our Twitter account at doofmedia.
Yeah, and if you're not already subscribed to this podcast, we encourage you to subscribe and ensure you never miss an episode. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher sometimes, YouTube, Google Play, and pretty much anywhere else podcasts can be found.
Yeah, we're having Stitcher's having some hiccups.
Yeah.
And it's not our fault. So if you listen via Stitcher and something's going wrong, I'm sorry. It's not me.
Yell at them. Yeah.
Yeah, yell at Stitcher. All right. You can find this and all of our shows over at our website, Doof Media. That's where you can also find our book club, which is meeting this Friday, the 3rd of September. So that would be today if you're listening to this the day the episode came out. We're meeting at 9:30 p.m. and we're going to be talking all about the second book in Brandon Sanderson's Stormlight Archive called The Words of Radiance. It's a big fat book, and I think we both have a lot to say about it, Matt.
Yeah, I think we do. Yeah.
I won't spoil what those words will be,
no,
or in what direction they'll go.
Yeah,
but
they might be radiant.
They might be. You can join us, as I said, over on our YouTube channel. We do a live stream of that. So if you want to just chat about Brandon Sanderson with us for a couple hours, please join. It's so much fun. And if you want to help decide what books we cover on our book club each month, you can join our Patreon. That's patreon.com/doofmedia. You donate at any level on that Patreon, and you get access to vote in our monthly book club polls, one of which is happening right now, and the winner will be announced during that show Friday evening. But you also get a bunch of other cool things, bonus episodes of podcasts, voting in fan art contests. God, so much, Matt. So many things, so many. There's like hundreds of posts we've made over the course of the years that you will get access to right away. That's over at patreon.com/doofmedia.
That's right. Also, please consider rating and reviewing the Doofcast on Apple Podcasts, because every review does help us to get more exposure and introduces new people to the content that we make here.
All right, folks, we will see you all next week for another episode of the Doofcast. I think we're going to be doing something a little bit different next week, Matt. I think our friend from Pale in Comparison, Malia, is going to join the show because she wanted to talk to us about the 1995 movie Sense and Sensibility. So we're going to be watching that and chatting with Malia about it.
Awesome.
So we'll see you all next week.
My name is Doof, and you'll do what I say. My name is Doof, and you'll do what I say.